Hey everyone, I just thought I'd do this real quickly while I can. Just checking outside the window here. But I thought I'd come on here and I was thinking about saying this, and I'm just gonna come out and say it. I mean, I know along with everybody else that a lot of us, in a way, respect the views and opinions of one Dave Meltzer and one Bryan Alvarez. But when it comes to the two, that respect doesn't come without baggage. And I'm not talking the kind of baggage that would get them blackballed or anything, no. I'm talking the kind of baggage of, can you really believe what any of them say? I mean, don't get me wrong, there are times that when they do report some news that basically it does turn out to be somewhat, if not totally true. It does. Don't get me wrong about that. Don't get me wrong about that. But the truth is, there are certain news items that I look at and I'm like, really? We're expected to believe that? We're expected to believe this is the reason and this was the reason the whole time? I seriously doubt it. I'll give you a prime example. Dave Meltzer recently, according to ringsidenews.com, Dave Meltzer recently reported on his Wrestling News Little Observer and podcast, and I think Bryan Alvarez also backed him up on this, that the whole idea behind the World Cup the whole time was to have Shane McMahon win it. Yeah, that was the idea the whole time, was to have Shane McMahon win the World Cup, and thus this would slowly transition him into a heel authority figure on SmackDown Live. And a lot of people have become very vocal about this. I think Solomonster has been vocal about it. I think Good Mic Work has been, Greg Morgan has been vocal about it. Pro Wrestling Unlimited has been very vocal about it. Some people that do kind of have a voice around here when they review or talk about wrestling, and mostly WWE, they're the kinds that are heard. And quite honestly, when news comes around that one Shane McMahon is going to be turning heel, and the reason for that is because he wins the World Cup when he wasn't scheduled to, but apparently the plan the whole time was for him to do so, and that's the whole reason for the World Cup. I find that hard to believe. I find that hard to really believe. Now, a lot of people are hoping that this is just a one-off deal, and even if they mention it briefly on SmackDown Live or on Raw, that hopefully that's it. It's non-quintessential, or non-quintessential, if you will. It really doesn't have no rhyme or reason for even being mentioned anymore. Heck, according to reports from a Dave Meltzer and a Bryan Alvarez and even a Mike Johnson, according to the sources that relayed this information to them, not only was the World Cup, this whole World Cup tournament nothing but a piece of crap, and that the reason, heck, Greg Morgan even said that. Greg Morgan of Good Mic Work even said that himself, that this World Cup thing was a joke. It was a piece of crap. And to basically say now that the reason it even existed was because the plan the whole time was to make Shane McMahon the winner so you could slowly transition him into a heel makes no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever due to the fact that I think, I don't know if it was Greg or Solomonster or somebody mentioned this, that the one thing that made Shane so unique and different in his family when it came to being on screen, as an on-screen character or an authority figure, was he was kind of like and I don't mean anything offensive by this, he was kind of like the black sheep of the family. It's like Stephanie, Vince, Triple H, and even Linda over a little over a decade ago, actually 13 something years ago, were all basically cut out of the same mold. Shane kind of followed suit at times, but most times was more receptive and more accepted by the fan base when he was a babyface. It's like no matter how many times you tried to turn him heel and how much you got the fans to boo him and to hate on him, there were fans that just couldn't do it. I mean, even when you had him as a heel with his dad before he left in that feud with DX, no one could hate him. When you turned him babyface along with Vince and Triple H to face Legacy, people cheered. They loved it. The point I'm getting at is the excuse, the report that Meltzer has given that this whole World Cup thing, according to what he understands, or from what he's heard, was nothing more than just an excuse to have Shane win and to slowly use this victory to turn him heel. I find it hard to believe. Because isn't it enough that already on Raw we have a heel commissioner and a heel acting general manager that's just probably slowly transitioning into a full-time general manager, or just slowly transitioning into your next top heel on Raw who's going to carry the Universal Championship down the line? Isn't that enough? I mean, do we have to have a storyline where both McMahon siblings are running the show and they're abusing their power because they can? I mean, the only way this works is if you're gonna, I mean, here's what I don't understand. What's the point of turning Shane heel if you're going to keep Stephanie heel? Because one cannot work off the other. You know what I'm saying? I mean, here's the thing. Yes, they could both work heel. They could both work as heels together. They could conspire together. They could work together as a heel, as an authority figure group. That is understandable. That's acceptable. Yes, it can be done. Yes, that all can be done. It's been proven before. But that was a different time and age. That was a different time. That was like, what, 2001? 2001 or so? And quite frankly, like I said, the way they work off better, no matter how hard you try to get them to work together as heels, to make them work together as baby faces, the best way they've always worked with each other is when one's the baby face, one's the heel. That's pretty much the fact of it. I'm just checking something there. Hold on. That's pretty much the fact of it. Is if one's the baby face, one's the heel. You can't have one working off the other. I mean, you can't have both working as in the same role as commissioners of two different shows going up against each other. You need one to be the heel. You need one to be the baby face. That's how it works. You need the light versus the dark. You don't need the dark versus the dark. You need good versus evil. You don't need evil versus evil. You don't need that. It's bad enough sometimes in the real world we get that. Lord, forgive me for saying that. So we don't need that on something that we try to watch and use as our escapism from the reality. We don't need that. So that's why it makes it hard for me to believe what Dave Meltzer reported and Bryan Alvarez reported, or anybody else reports, about the World Cup being basically the foundation to slowly turn Shane McMahon heel, because the whole plan the whole time was to have Shane win it. If that was the case, why even do the damn World Cup? You see, and then there's a report. Remember what I said when I said WWE would be probably rushing the superstars out of that stadium, out of that venue, and to the airport as quickly as possible? Well, there's a report that came out, according to Mike Johnson, that states that the sources reported to him, his sources reported to him, that the reason WWE rushed the superstars out of there as quickly as possible and on an aircraft and into the air and out of Saudi Arabia, the reason they did that is because they had to meet the next destination. They had to get to the next locale for the next live event. Okay, fine. That might make some sense. But here's the problem. I find it hard to believe. Because not only do you have your superstars being rushed out into the airport, but you have Triple H being taken on a luxury or Learjet, probably the same Learjet that Vince is on, according to them, though it was separate. They were separate Learjets, whatever. But you have Triple H. You basically have everybody being rushed out of the damn country and into the air for the next destination, or in the case of Triple H and Vince McMahon, rushed back to Stamford, Connecticut. And we're expected to believe that the reason they were rushed out is because you had to get Triple H to a local hospital, to get Triple H to Birmingham maybe, to be checked on by Dr. James Andrews or whoever. Well, because Vince had to get back into his cubicle in Stamford, or his office in Stamford. And because the superstars need to get to the next live event destination. BS. That is nothing but BS. Excuse my language, God, but it's nothing but BS. And you know why? Because all it is, and everybody's called them out about this already, all it is WWE just making up excuses, any sources that they allowed to leak information to a Mike Johnson, a Dave Meltzer, a Bryan Alvarez, or whoever. All those sources that are reporting this information to those individuals, those sources are full of crap. Because we know the real truth, Dave Meltzer knows the real truth, Bryan Alvarez knows the real truth, Mike Johnson knows the real truth. So I ask you three individuals this: why don't you confirm it first? Instead of going off, oh, well, this person told me that. How do you know your source how do you know the individual, your source that you're getting the information from isn't just, as somebody said, part of the ring crew? I mean, honestly, how do you know they're not part of the ring crew? Do you not think WWE, after last year or so, when a lot of information came out that didn't want to come out, that they haven't tightened the security, they haven't kept a watchful eye on those that work within the offices in Stamford? Do you not think they're not doing that? Of course they are. Of course they are. And you know what? That's smart of them to do. It's smart of them to do. So you're telling me that they're not aware, they wouldn't be aware of someone leaking information. They would be. If someone in their offices was leaking information, they would be aware of it. That's why you have to confirm. If I'm you, Dave Meltzer, and I'm you, Bryan Alvarez, and I'm you, Mike Johnson, and whoever else, I confirm first if the source, the person I'm getting the information from, if the source that I'm getting the information from is legit, if they're close to the situation. Because if you ask them, okay, by the way, I've never got a, this is the most logical thing you can do. You could literally just ask the person, look, I've never asked you this before out of respect, but I have to know. Are you telling me the truth? Are you really close to the situation? Or are you just going off your hearsay or what you want? And oh, by the way, are you do you work in the offices? Or are you part of the ring crew? Or whatever. All you have to do is just simply ask them if they really work in the offices or if they're part of the ring crew or whatever. Because if they fail to answer that first question of do they work in the Stanford offices, then that would tell you right there, oh, wait a minute, you're just a ring crew member or something, so you don't really know? All they'd have to do in response is tell you the truth. And if they say, well, yeah, I kind of want to see Shane go heel, it'd be cool. I mean, come on, seriously, just be honest. Just have them be honest with you guys. Because Dave, Bryan, Mike, anybody else, I know you probably hear this source, you hear the information, you get this information from all these sources, and you cannot tell me, you cannot tell Pro Wrestling Insider, you cannot tell anybody from Chase Oliver to Pro Wrestling Report to PW Torch to OTR Central, Chase, Dalyxman, NoDQ.com, Aaron Riff, Jeff Meacham, Jason Solomon, the Solomonster, Don Tony, Kevin Castle, Wrestling Soup. You cannot tell us. You cannot tell us that you don't grit your teeth in trying to believe any of the information you get, because you probably find it a little bogus yourself. Like something's not right with this story. So here's my suggestion in closing. Meltzer, Alvarez, Johnson, and anybody else. With all due respect. Before you report, make sure your source is a legitimate source. Make sure your source is actually working in the offices of Stamford, Connecticut. Or, if they're not, then ask them straight up why they're making stuff up to you or how they're getting the information. That's what you need to do. Because if you want people to start buying into what you say, because Dave, Bryan, you guys have baggage, and it's not the kind of baggage that some people would think, but it's basically the kind of baggage where people find it hard to believe a word you say, because the name of your thing is called Observer, and you're basically, to some people, the National Enquirer of Wrestling. And look, I know some people will defend you. A lot of people will defend you. And yes, they might say, well, observer basically means they're observing the situation and going off guesses. Okay, fine, cool. But if you're observing it, then say that. Just say, from what I observe, and from my source observes, this looks like it may be the direction they go in, but not precisely. We don't know yet. I mean, why do you think Ringside News now is ending all the columns by saying only time will tell? Because even they find it hard to believe some of these reports. But again, my suggestion to you, Meltzer, Johnson, and Alvarez, if you're going to start reporting, make sure that your sources are truly legit. And if not, you straight up ask those sources how they're getting their information, or if they're just making stuff up. That's all I'm going to really say on this situation, guys. So let me know what you all think. Hopefully you've taken your time and listening to this. I know it's gone on for about 20 minutes, but let me know almost 20 minutes, but let me know what you all think down below. Do you agree with me on what I've had to say? And again, Meltzer, Johnson, Alvarez, out of respect, please make sure you get the correct information, because all this news recently coming out of, the whole plan for the World Cup was to have Shane win, so he slowly turns heel. Oh, the wrestlers, the superstars, Vince and Triple H were all rushed out after the show because they had to get to certain destinations. We're finding that all hard to believe, guys. So, let me know what you all think. And again, Meltzer, Johnson, Alvarez, please, out of respect for all of us and our intelligence, make sure your sources are being true with you, are being truthful. Because if not, then maybe you need to find different sources to rely on. I'll talk to y'all later. God bless. Take care.